This is a setup that a lot of people have been talking about lately. I mean, Gara is probably one of the most notable upgrades, given everyone else kind of plays the same. Gara's old playstyle asked for the Charger 2. It works. It's not nearly as good anymore. Though I will say a lot of people are overblowing how much less good it is, more or less. Because one big thing that buffed it was the armor changes. A lot less damage for viable enemies. For two, but now basically always run a positive strength, good duration, high range. Um, Augmented just passively builds up your gold mine, but Arcane Fury is a really good slot here. Build doesn't have all damage. Obviously, star of the show. This Texas here because you build up a lot of combo base swing pretty quickly. Reflect, it's just have that burst of those. It's obviously and you are doing it. Not all that much. You get to orange crits effects. Good. Uh, Ideally, I were to run cards equal and like I don't remember the wording. The one that makes it so because Shatter Lash's influence procs count as ability damage, which means that they're buffed by that, which is really good. Uh, Very simple, very easy. Obviously, running Naramon because I have energy. I will not. Or because I Arcane are very augmented is nice, but your positive strength by default. Thing anything. Um, there's a lot of places. This energize is not necessary at all. Another good one is if you're going like later into when your one triggers are. And the health regen basically allows you to not run ending splinters and still have access to that. Really useful. And very comfortably driving much further than a or ability and add it. Go. Blessing is another lot just for. Uh, there's a lot. You have a lot of options. As um, but uh, I went with I went with augmented and energized because combo, and because we are running low efficiency and we are spamming our one like we are. It it does get a little taxing just to get more than enough. You could drop this something else. Um, you use about 2 shards. That would equate to like basically a pretty even safe energy economy. And if you're running Nerd, this doesn't have a either. Either of these abilities really, though I would lean towards the three. We're so excited on this build, and you're not really caring about the damage on your team at all, so don't really worry about refreshing it. And I usually just because it's cheaper to recast my 2 than recast my 4. There's a lot more that you can do here than just having to run equally. Energize is enough, but I don't run any shards. I usually shards on things that I'm. But no combo, so it's procced automatically. Never mind. The heavy Isle higher comp. It kind of doesn't. They kind of don't. This is very much so 150 M plus builds, like, easy. But if you get good tiles, like, it's not about the build points, it's about, like, get the tile set that you run. Though, I will say, Gara can run afflictions. Wipe from her knocked down. They knock down. That means on basic a much like that guy in particular cease to exist type setup. Or like, yeah, a lot more of these enemies are alive, but if you need to kill one guy in particular, that's a 3 million toxin problem. I don't have demos. I don't have any scanned on that, but you know, generally, the Afflictions version is like 1 million toxin proc, flash proc. Enemies that can take statuses don't live at all. So, and this build, Roar is great because he like double dip both your toxin and your slash procs for that, and also nerf. So yeah, and the thing with it is, because you're running this exact same, like, don't even have to really and have two different asked from here. Though, if you're doing enough, there are some ways that I've seen work on Gara for because that Afflictions build doesn't need, like, if you're, as long as you're enough that you're like near 90% reduction, so you probably want to run a strength card in case of using that build if that's what you main it. You can run impotent as long as you have like get some statuses like of sorts. But yeah, or you know, running more statuses on this or something magnetic and radiation. Like, this is literally just here to increase slash weight a little bit. I wanted for slash weight. I just found it more with a little investment is. Yep, Affliction really easy. You can run an exposure build too, but they're directly worse than both influence and afflictions. Like, there's no reason not to run afflictions and influence. But yeah, that's setups for Shattered Lash. Next clip will be simply using it. Small little addendum that I forgot to include in the last clip. But your primary and secondary matter. I just have a Bass Assist Rux on. Why not? And that means very easily dexterity if you want extra combo. And honestly, if you're running double dexterity, you kind of don't have to run Naramon because he's high enough that you'll probably never drop combo until you're like done, like until you're leaving. But I just recommend running Naramon because it's just nice, and it allows you to kind of not have to run dexterity. Also, Kratos is here just being faster, and now that we don't have to run a melee weapon specific build for this, you're kind of just free to run whatever. So like, Kratos is the insta slot. You can run something else if you really have a pressing reason to run something else for whatever you're doing. I've seen a couple people that have just been running Contagion Zaws because, like, why not? You know, what's the difference? But yeah, dexterity on your primary secondary is free because you will literally never need to use them. So much damage, it says. So free and easy. But yeah, off to the mission.